Hey everybody, so as of 3:02 p.m. Central Time on Friday, I clocked out at my job for the last time and I am a full-time YouTuber. In celebration of that, I decided to do a set of Q&As, so I asked you wonderful people for some questions over on my community tab. You gave me over 500 questions to answer, so I'm going to do 3 different videos to answer as many of your questions as I can. Here on this channel, we're answering questions about movies and TV. On my vlog channel, I'm going to answer questions about me, my family, personal type questions. And then on my third channel, Real Creators, I'm going to answer YouTube questions. So after this video, check out each of those Q&As to see if I answered one of your questions or kind of learn more about me or my thoughts on YouTube. You can find those at this card up above. Links will be down below in the description as well. And with that said, let's get started. There's a whole lot of these. First up, this was the question that the most people liked. Sean, who is your favorite actor and director of all time? So for director, easy, it is Steven Spielberg. He just has the most movies that he's done that are like top 10 favorites of mine, top 20 favorites of mine. He's just in so many classic films. Easy, him. Favorite actor, I don't really have one, but you know, I'm very fond of Stallone, Schwarzenegger, just kind of those classic action hero type guys. Those are the ones that immediately come to mind. Second most requested question from Liam Oserth. What is the most overrated movie of all time? I'm not the right guy to answer this question. I don't think that way. I think if a movie is highly rated by a whole bunch of people, who am I to say it's overrated? Just because it doesn't resonate with me doesn't mean it doesn't resonate with you. So I don't really at all have a movie that comes to mind. Like when I look at this year's Best Pictures, I can say that it's weird to me that like Black Panther's nominated for Best Picture and Bohemian Rhapsody are nominated for Best Picture. That seems kind of odd to me, even though those are movies I would like give a thumbs up to, but as for Best Picture, that seems overrated. But when you talk about of all time, it's just like a whole different category for me. I really don't have any movies that come to mind because of just the way I really do respect other people's opinions about films. I have my own strong opinions. I'll defend my opinions. But a lot of the time, I just, if a bunch of other people love it, I just don't think I can overrule their opinion on all of that. Next up from... I can't read your name. My question is, if you could spend one day with a movie character in real life, who would it be? Wow. A movie character in real life I'd want to spend time with. Man, I don't know. Because if I was wanting to meet someone in real life, I'd want someone that could give me wisdom. That would be the thing that I'd want to learn from them. So I guess in that regard, I'd go with like Steve Jobs or something like that from Jobs. Either one of the Steve Jobs from either Steve Jobs movie. Just pick his brain on life and things like that. And look, what other nuggets I could get out of him that aren't out there already. But yeah, or Luke Skywalker if we're going to go with a more interesting answer to your question. All right, Radstone Army. If you had to watch one movie on repeat for 24 hours, what would you pick? One movie on repeat for 24 hours. What's a movie that's very rewatch? I can rewatch most action movies on repeat. Most action movies that I like. So I'd pick probably Terminator 2 or True Lies, Taken, something like that. Just fun popcorn entertainment, just on loop. That's what I think I would go for. Walter White. Hey, Walter White. Wow, I didn't realize you were still around with us. In your opinion, what's the greatest trilogy of all time? Greatest trilogy of all time. I'm not very good at picking absolute greatest. I just don't... I know I rank things, so it gives off the impression I have all these favorites and things like... It's hard for me if things aren't limited down. If it's not in a pretty close... tight box, then there's just too many things to factor in. So I don't like to pick greatest. I can give you some of my favorites. And so then the original Indiana Jones trilogy, Star Trek 2 through 4 is a trilogy that I love. Back to the Future trilogy, Nolan's Batman trilogy. So, those ones that immediately come to mind, but I'll make a ranking at some point in time this year with my absolute favorites, but off the top of my head, I don't have like this distinct, here it is right here. Here's one I really like. Captain Cookie 222 says, when is it appropriate to remake a movie? So it's appropriate to remake a movie when culture has shifted enough or technology has shifted enough to make the movie be interesting in a new way. So if you do a sci-fi movie back in the 60s, well, a lot changed by 1980. A lot, if you made a sci-fi movie in 1989, a lot changed by the year 2000 with CGI. And so if enough things have changed that you could really pull it off properly now that technology has changed, there's a reason to update it. Or if culture has shifted and gives us a new perspective on things, the story means something new in a new era, that's another good reason to do it. So that's the reason that I always say that I think Back to the Future could be remade. People get just feared, oh, this is a perfect movie. Why would you want to do that? Because the central concept of it translates well to new decades. There's a huge difference in the concept and the fun things you can do with the idea of a 1985 high schooler going back to 1955. It's very different from a 2020 high schooler going back to 1990 because of the internet, because of technology, cell phones, all that stuff that's political correctness, social justice, all the stuff that's kind of changed drastically. That wasn't there in 1985. It's a whole new set of interesting things that makes a Back to the Future remake interesting to me. I'm not saying use the same script. I'm not even saying using Marty McFly and Doc Brown. But the central premise of it is new and different now than it was back then. So it's really, has culture shifted to make things new and interesting, or has technology changed to make it so you can realize the vision of the concept since time has passed? Movie Man says, a movie you liked but never want to watch again. I would go with Schindler's List. That's a great movie. I don't really want to rewatch it. That's a very unpleasant watch right there. So that's the one that comes to mind. Adrian, something, I can't read your name. Sean, can you name some good movies that you don't like and some bad movies that you love? So, like I said, I don't like to trash movies that, if everyone says a movie's great, I'm not the guy that likes to be contrarian. I can respect that they like it. So where I would go with this one, I'm not going to list off movies that I hate or anything like that. But I've never been a big Stanley Kubrick guy. He's just kind of out there, weird, cerebral ambiguity in a lot of the stuff that he does, and artistic in ways that's not the way I resonate with movies. And so I'm not trying to tell you shouldn't like it. I'm not going to trash it. I'm not going to do any of those things. But, people always, kill Cooper. What's your favorite Kubrick? I'm just not the guy that gets as into that as so many other people. And I can respect that you do. It's just not for me. Movies that I love that other people hate or that aren't good. All of the martial arts action movies from the late 80s, early 90s, Van Damme, Seagal. I love all of that stuff. Jeff Speakman. A lot of the just kind of popcorn entertainment action movies from my formative years in the 80s and 90s. I just love all that stuff. Doesn't need to be good. It still entertains me quite a bit. All right, we got some quick questions right here. The Life says, Star Trek or Star Wars? For me, I don't think that there's a debate between the two. One is science fiction, one is science fantasy. They're not the same genre. So I don't know why we would have any sort of fight over it. It's a pretty stupid argument, and I don't think it's real. That's a thing that people don't really argue about that anymore. People don't care if you like two different things anymore. So yeah, that's my answer on that one. Ezekiel McLeod, Christopher Nolan or James Cameron? Oh, you're breaking my heart now. I think I've got to go with James Cameron. Well, yeah, I got to go with James Cameron as of right now. James Cameron has flushed away the last 20 years of his life on Avatar for some reason, but he's still the guy that gave me Terminator, Aliens, Terminator 2, True Lies. This is a guy that has so many movies that are top 10 favorites for me. Christopher Nolan is very close, though. This is not an easy answer for me, but there's just a few too many James Cameron movies in there. T. Holy Wiggins or something like that. Jaws or Jurassic Park? I got to go Jurassic Park. Both are fantastic, of course. Both are amazing. But if I'm going with which one, if I only got to keep one, Jurassic Park is the one that I watch more. Jay Skiz, top 3 Jackie Chan movies. Police Story from 1985. Drunken Master 2, or as it was released in the United States, Legend of Drunken Master. And then I'll go with one of Hollywood ones, Shanghai Noon. Shanghai Noon, the first one in that duology. So those ones have some, either the last one there has buddy element with Owen Wilson, and then the first two just have fantastic choreography. All right. Aiden Jenny, if you could go back in time and prevent from a movie from existing, which movie would you erase? Easy, Alien 3. I hate Alien 3. Back to what we just mentioned before about aliens being one of my favorite. Alien 3 at the very beginning hurts aliens for me, and that's unforgivable for me. That's the movie I hate the most. It killed the continuity of this great franchise that you could do so much stuff with it, and they picked just a terrible direction to go with it. Ricky HD says, what's the most underrated movie of all time? All time, I don't know, but last 10 years, I'll go with Warrior, the MMA movie with Joel Edgerton, Tom Hardy, Nick Nolte. Just fantastic movie. Out Rocky's Rocky in so many ways. There's so many just like pump your fist and yeah moments throughout the whole movie. If you haven't seen it, you got to go watch Warrior. It's just a great drama. It's a great sports movie. Hits all the right notes and just leaves you like, yeah, by the end of it. All right, here's one I got to dig into. Preview review. As a critic, who do you think has more say in whether a movie should be seen? Critics or audiences? I don't think either one, really. You shouldn't decide if you see a movie based off of audience scores or critic scores. You should decide if you want to see a movie is whether you want to see a movie or not. I think as individuals, you should find people that you trust, movie critics that you trust, specific ones though. Don't trust aggregated numbers and scores that are just, it's a group of people's opinions all squished together. That doesn't really help you. It might give you raw information that's interesting. It's interesting to me. Rotten Tomato scores are interesting to me. Cinema scores are interesting to me. But I don't decide whether I'm going to see a movie based off of that. I'll ask a friend. I'll look at a critic that I trust that knows how to articulate things in a way that connects with me, that I understand what he's saying, and I'll listen to what they're saying and go, okay, I should see it. Then again, I'm a movie reviewer. I just see things no matter what. But as for you, what you want to do is find people, individuals that you trust, not aggregated scores and things like that. But I mean, if you're going to go by just to give you one or the other answer, the one that to the masses, which one is more useful to decide if the masses should go see it? It's the score created by the masses in that sense. But it all depends on what question you're answering and who you are in general. But should the masses, let's trust the masses? Yeah. If you're more of kind of a cinephile, you should probably trust the critics. But make up your own mind is what you should go see, is what I would say. Bo Lauterball, I don't know what this says. John, what movie was the biggest disappointment ever? I'll go with the Matrix sequels. And the third one made the second one worse. The second one, I think, had some good elements in it, some ideas that could have paid off really nicely, or they could have been just destroyed by the third film, and they were destroyed by the third film. And those movies put together hurt the mythology of the first film in a lot of ways. It was just couldn't be resolved because they took it in such a bad direction. So Matrix sequels. Ryan says, thoughts on Ben Affleck leaving the role of Batman? I think it's very disappointing that we're never going to get to see a Ben Affleck Batman movie. Both in the sense of one written and directed by multiple Oscar-winning Ben Affleck, who wrote a movie and won an Oscar for screenwriting for Good Will Hunting, and then directed a movie that won Best Picture in Argo. It's too bad we're never going to get to see him write and direct a Batman movie. I don't at all buy that he couldn't crack the code. I think that he knew what he wanted to do and the studio knew what they wanted to do, and the two didn't mesh up. And so he can't go out and say the studio sucks. My story was great. He has to go out there and say I couldn't crack the code, because he can say that with integrity that he didn't crack the code for what they wanted. But I think it's very unlikely that the full picture of what happened is that this brilliant guy that loves Batman couldn't come up with a Batman story he wanted to tell. That doesn't sound very believable, so I don't fully buy that. But we've known this is coming for 2 years now. It was basically 2 years since he was kicked off writing and directing, or quit writing and directing. And as soon as that happened, there were rumors that he was out. So we knew this was coming, so it was no surprise. I think it's shady that they took this long to announce it. I think they wanted to wait until they were real close to announcing who they did cast. They probably already have cast whoever it is. They're just waiting for the right moment to announce it, so it's exciting. But That's kind of my take. It's very disappointing. We never get to see one made by him and starring him. We saw him in a really watered down Justice League movie that the studio interfered with, and then we saw him in a movie that had its issues in Batman v Superman, and there's glimpses of who he could have been, what it could have been, and we're never going to get to see that fully realized. The Superhero Man, what is your criteria for a good movie? So my criteria for a good movie is, does it do what it set out to do, and does it do something interesting and unique? So a movie can lack being interesting, but it can do what it's trying to do really well. So that'd be like a movie that's like in the B category for me. There's lots of movies to me that are very competently made movies that aren't fully original. And then there's those unique experiences that are just so fresh. They're kind of those A's for me. But like a comedy, if it's really funny but the story's kind of generic, but it makes you laugh, that's still a good enough movie. It did what it's supposed to do. Even if the acting's bad, even if the story's been done before, it gave me what it's supposed to give me. If the action is fantastic in a movie and the story's, we've seen this before, still, it did what it's supposed to do. That's probably going to be a B. But if you make an action movie where the action's all chopped to pieces and stuff, then it's, even if the story's good, it's like, I came here to see the action. Why did you do this? So does it do what it's trying to do? If it's supposed to be a drama and the drama doesn't quite hit right, you just kind of have a boring movie. But other times, like Alita, I thought it delivered on the sci-fi, the action, the world building. Some of the emotional moments didn't quite hit, but that wasn't a problem because those weren't the most important things. It knocked it back from being an A or a great movie, but it's still a good enough movie because it hit in the areas it was supposed to work, at least for me. So that's kind of the big ones. Does it do what it's supposed to do based on the genre, based on its target's aim, and then does it bring something new, fresh to the table? Does it do it with extreme excellence? Is just kind of pretty good at it? And this makes it difficult to review movies that I'm not the target audience for, because I don't always fully know. Like if I go see a movie that's aimed at my kids, I'm quite a bit older than them. So it can be a little bit tricky in moments like that. 2 more questions on here. Aaron Fraser says, Christian movies have a bad reputation for being bad. That is true. What are some that you think are actually good? So I think the reason that a lot of Christian movies are bad is because they're sermon illustrations as movies, which people don't want to go to a movie to be preached at. You want to tell a story that communicates something. And so when a movie tells a story that's compelling and along the way characters are changed and transformed, then that's when people are like, oh, that's good. When it's just like people are reciting a sermon to each other in the middle of a movie as character development, it's like, oh, this is tedious. And that's what a lot of Christian movies kind of turn into, or like Kirk Cameron ones with gospel presentations. Like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this? So some good ones. I thought Case for Christ a couple years ago, which is really, Case for Christ is a bad name for that movie. It's really Lee Strobel, the movie. It's his story of kind of going from an atheist to a Christian. So that works because it's a person telling their story. And so things felt authentic inside of it because they're a version of what really happened. Passion of the Christ was a movie told with a lot of artistic value to it. So I think things like that, I think there's a lot of room for a lot more that are good, but people have to move away from the sermon illustration version of storytelling. And that's not what people don't want that out of a movie, whether any genre. So like I thought Blockers from last year, which is like a dirty, raunchy sex comedy from last year, I thought that one was very preachy at times. It was very preachy about its message of like loose sexuality and gender roles and sexism in society. It started preaching to you about that. And it's like, that was off-putting to me. Not even because I disagreed with it, which some of the stuff it said I did disagree with, but because it was preaching at me. Like a person literally starts lecturing a room full of people on their views on gender roles. I was like, what are we doing? This is a comedy. Let your story communicate it. Don't monologue at me. Final question of this video. How and where did you learn to study and review film? I think the way you learn to study and review film is by watching a lot of different types of movies and thinking critically about it. The other one is that back when I was in high school, got a copy of maybe middle school, got a copy of Leonard Maltin's movie guide. You can get this off Amazon. And I've been buying these for 20 years. I've got about 20 of these. And just reading his thoughts on movies. And so thinking different vocabulary. All right, we disagree on this one. What is he not seeing there that I'm seeing? What in this movie is he seeing that I'm not seeing? So watch a lot of different types of movie reviewers. people like you, people not like you, and read a book on screenwriting, read a book on photography, read a book on directing. And so you just learn the language of storytelling, the language of camera, or the language of how people talk about shots, angles, cameras, things like that. And so you have categories to put what you're seeing into. You have a language to describe what you're seeing. So a lot of times people you feel something, you know it doesn't work quite right, but you don't have the words to articulate it, to say it, to make a sentence out of your feeling. Learning about screenwriting, learning about stories, learning about cameras, learning about photography, learning about directing, learning about the filmmaking process, it gives you the language to talk about it and describe what it feels like is happening inside of something. And so that's kind of the process to where I got to where I'm at, of a whole lot of just studying movies, movie reviews, watching a lot of movies, analyzing it, and talking about all of it. Thank you so much. Remember to check out those other 2 videos right over there, I do believe. One of them on me personally, one of them down below on YouTube. If you enjoyed this video, there's other stuff in there that you will absolutely love, and keep talking movies too much.